Bismillah wa salatu wa salam ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam ma ba'd. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was asked about the seawater, and a man, he asked a question. He said, "Inna narkabu al-bahr wa nahmilu ma'ana qalil min al-ma' فإذا تودأنا به عطشنا أفنتوضأ من ماء البحر." فقال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم هو طهور ماءه الحل ميتته. The Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, mashallah tabarakallah, there is fish in there, little ones. The Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم said, or was asked by a man on the sea, and this is munasib or useful for those people who travel on the sea to know the hukum or the ruling about water. The man said, "Verily we travel by the sea, and we take with us just a little bit of water. And if we are on the sea, we become thirsty." He said, "Can we make wudhu from the seawater?" And the Prophet ﷺ responded, as he did often, with very simple but profound speech which had immense meaning. He said, "Huwa ma'hu," or he said, "Ma'hu, huwa ma'hu hillaluhu." The Prophet ﷺ said, "The water is pure, and the dead in it is halal, is lawful." What we learn from this hadith of the Prophet ﷺ is that seawater is sufficient for us to make, or any kind of natural water is sufficient for us to make wudu in, or to make ghusl in, and that as long as the water isn't stagnant water and a small amount of water that has been tainted by najasa. So for example, if someone urinates in a small area of stagnant water, then in that, of course, that water we should not use, especially if it changes in its color, or it changes in its taste or its smell. Anytime that water changes from its main characteristic, from najasa, from something impure like urine or defecation or blood or something like this, and it changes one of those characteristics, either its smell or its taste, or its color, from the impurity, then that's, of course, impermissible to use. And going back to the hadith, this shows us the permissibility of using the seawater for our wudu. That if one was on the sea and they needed to make ghusl mitlan, the ceremonial to remove the impurities, then it will be sufficient, according to a group of the ulama, it will be sufficient just to make your niyyah and jump in the sea. Bismillah, jump in the sea with the intention to remove those impurities. Come out and you can pray. That is the minimal amount for a ghusl. Some of the ulama say, and they use some of the evidences from the ahadith of the Prophet ﷺ and from the ayat where Allah talks about wudu, they use that to say that that is sufficient as long as they make istinshaq wa tamadmad, meaning that they wash their mouth and their nose. So if a person were to jump in the sea and they were to have the intention, of course, and they were to wash their mouth and their nose, then that would be sufficient for their ghusl. Also from that hadith, we gain another benefit, that sea creatures, things that live in the sea, almost all that they depend on living in the water. They cannot survive outside of the water, then they're halal to eat. As the Prophet ﷺ, all the sea, all fish and so forth are permissible for us to eat, even if they are dead. As the Prophet ﷺ said, "Inna ma'hu tuhurun al-hillaluhu maytatuhu," or al-hillu maytatuhu, that the deceased in the sea is pure. So meaning if you find a dead fish, then it is halal, it is lawful to eat that fish. As long as you don't know that there's harm in it, meaning if you knew that fish was killed by poison or something like this that was going to cause you harm, because the Prophet also sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, la dirar wa la dirar, that there's no harm and there's no causing harm. So then it would be permissible to eat that dead sea creature, a whale, a dolphin, a fish, an octopus, whatever. Even if it were washed up on the beach, it would be permissible to eat it. However, creatures like the alligator, which does not totally depend on the water and is not in the sea as well, but it doesn't totally depend on the water. It can survive outside of the water for quite a time, and it is a predator or a carnivore animal like that, then that is not permissible to eat. The crocodile, the alligator, those kind of creatures. But those sea creatures, those things that must depend upon the sea, they're permissible, and that's what we learn from the hadith. And we ask Allah the Almighty to accept our good and forgive our evil. Wa sallallahu wa sallam ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam.